we are very fortunate to have a thriving economy for the most part here in Greenville, Pitt County, and that's the subject of the next hour here. The economic strengths and challenges and where we go from here. And we got a great assortment of folks from the community. Tom Taft, to my far right, needs no introduction, former Senator Tom Taft, the local developer who has made probably as large a financial commitment to the development of Greenville in the recent years as anybody, maybe more. Carl Reese, who is the Economic Development Officer for the City of Greenville, also the President of the Greenville-Pitt County Chamber of Commerce. Scott Senator is here. And to my far left is Wanda Uhas, who is the Pitt County Development Officer, the Economic Development Officer for the county. So I want to give every one of you a chance to kind of give some opening thoughts and comments about where the economy of Eastern North Carolina is, what the strengths and challenges are, 3 or 4 minutes from each one of you. Then we'll come back and have some discussion, and hopefully we'll have some participation from the audience. Senator Taft, we'll start with you. Thank you for being here this afternoon.
Thank you, Henry, and thank you for doing this for Greenville and Eastern North Carolina. Very helpful. My focus is more on Greenville and Pitt County than the eastern part of the state in my remarks today. I think we're blessed to have a vital and growing and well-grounded economy in Greenville and Pitt County. We know what the primary elements of it are. East Carolina University, the med school, which is part of the university, the health care related divided, and then the private health care that surrounds that. We have a pretty good industrial base, a growing industrial base, and a vital a business community. So we have all the pieces that we really need, and we're making progress. And I'm proud to be part of that progress and proud of my team that's here today, things that we're doing. But what I really wanted to focus on is what I think we could be doing that would substantially enhance the economic growth and productivity that occurs here in Pitt County. Over the last 4 years, we have devoted most of our efforts towards real estate development, not only in North Carolina, but in surrounding states. And come to understand a couple of very important principles that I want to lay out for us for just a moment here. And that is, I see communities that understand what livability is about and trying to improve the quality of life of that community. And those are the communities that are thriving, that are attracting industry, that are attracting creative people, creative businesses. And I look around and try to figure out why some communities have it and others don't. I've come to understand very clearly that it's not about red states and blue states. It's not about, the partisan politics. Some of the most progressive communities that I see in North and South Carolina have strong Republican city councils and county commissioners. So it's not related to that. It's related to people that have the vision to understand what people are willing to pay for and what they want in their communities. And they're willing to do the bonds that are necessary. They're willing to do things like tax increment financing. They're willing to take the kind of bold steps that we all saw in Greenville, South Carolina. Right close to us, look at some of the things they're doing in Kinston that are eclipsing some of what we're doing here in terms of entertainment. And you go to Clayton. Clayton is one of the most conservative red counties in the state. And Clayton has the most progressive city council, the recreational activities that they do, they've created, the public buildings that they're willing to finance and build and occupy. And another example is that they've just gotten a major federal grant to build a road in town using a program that I've never heard of used around here, called the Campo program. And there are just lots of opportunities if your leadership has the vision to step forward and lead the people to understand the economic benefits of spending money. I think you have to get over the concept that the least money spent is the best. I think the concept has to be spend your money in the best way and make sure that it's targeted to create the kinds of communities that you want. Two South Carolina communities we've been in the last month, Columbia, South Carolina, or Lexington, which is a suburb of Columbia, has the nicest new high school I have ever seen anywhere in the country. Unbelievable. I thought, well, we'll never see anything like this. And then I go down to Monk's Corner. Do you know where Monk's Corner is? Outside of Charleston. I mean, it's out in the sticks. And out at Monk's Corner is a little development now, 4,800 acres, called Cane Bay Plantation. And they just built a brand new high school, a brand new middle school, and a brand new elementary school there. Tax-supported schools, as nice as anything I've ever seen. And Google is going there. That's why Google is spending $1.2 billion. So we have to be not afraid to step forward and do the kinds of intelligent things that need to be done. Thank you.
All right, very good. And we should say that some of the projects you have going right now, which we'll come back and talk about, including the downtown student development you're basically transforming a huge part of downtown Greenville, Tommy, so we appreciate all of that, and also the great project that you've done out here by the dental school. Let's go to Carl Reese now, who is the Economic Development Officer for the City of Greenville. Carl?
Well, thank you, and appreciate Tom's comments. Very much agree with those, and thanks to all of you for coming out today, and Henry for you all hosting this today. Again, Tom talked about his comments being more about Greenville-Pitt County. I'll probably take that down a notch more, and my comments will primarily be about the City of Greenville, about the corporate limits of the City of Greenville, as that's the jurisdiction that I serve and who writes my paycheck every month. But I think economic development for the city is really quite interesting, and the way I view it and the way that I view the city having really gotten recently into economic development is because of some contrast in our community. Like any community, we have some very positive things, and then we have those challenges. On the positive side for the city, we are a very, very fast-growing city and have been for a while. We're currently the 10th largest city by population in the state. In the last census period, so from 2000 to 2010, we grew at almost 40%, 39.8%. Since 1990, we have added 40,000 people in our jurisdiction. We nearly doubled in 20 years our size. Not quite, but we nearly doubled. We also have particularly for eastern North Carolina, but generally an educated workforce and a young workforce. So those are quite positive for us. And interestingly enough, our research indicates that we have a very strong retail market. Our retail sales per capita, which are a little bit under $20,000 per person, compare very favorably to much larger metro areas like Tidewater, Virginia, and the Triangle area in North Carolina. So those are all real strengths for us. But we also have some issues that we have to overcome. Our per capita income in Greenville, as with much of eastern North Carolina, is lower than the state average and lower than the national average. And that's certainly something on the negative side of the ledger. For Greenville, one of the issues that we have with this growth, tremendous growth, not only have the number of people here grown, but the city has grown out. We've added about a third to the city over that same period in terms of physical land. What did that mean for us? We built many, many roads. We built many, many parks and a lot of other infrastructure. Well, guess what? It's coming time now, 20 years out, to start maintaining a lot of this stuff and spending money on that. We don't always have the money to do that. Well, why is that? Do we have particularly low tax rates? Well, not necessarily. For us, the issue is more with the assessed value of what we have. I was sharing with Tom Taft to my right here before the meeting some information that we use. It's just a nice rule of thumb to look at how we stack up against other cities. In Greenville, if you take a penny of taxes, what does that yield when we have a penny of taxes we pay here? It's about $600,000. For the rest of the top 10 cities, and if you take 5 through 15, for instance, that is on the low end. So we are much more like a Rocky Mount, North Carolina, than we are like cities that we probably would want to compare ourselves to, like a Wilmington or an Asheville, North Carolina, where in those places a penny might generate more like $850,000 or $1 million or over $1 million. So for us, what that means is if we want to keep our tax rates competitive, which I'm sure we all want that, we have a bit of a challenge in trying to keep up and trying to do those quality of life things that Tom talked about and that we all like, our greenways, our parks, quality roads, pick up the garbage on time, good police services, and so on. So those are some of the challenges that we have, and that is what we believe led our city council about 18 months ago to focus on economic development, to help build good-paying jobs for our community with the private sector and help grow that tax base.
Carl Reese, thank you very much. All right, let's go to Scott Senator, who this past year, became the new president. He's been here a long time as vice president of the Chamber of Commerce, but now the president of the Greenville Pitt County Chamber of Commerce. Scott, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Henry, and I want to thank you and your staff for hosting this event. It's a great event. I think the discussion has been good. I've been to, I think, 3 of the 5 so far, and it's been great. I am excited to be in this role. As Henry said, I started in September, and I can honestly say I've learned more about this community the past 7 or 8 months as president of the Chamber than I had the 7 or 8 years prior working at the Chamber. And here's what I know. We have a strong, tight-knit business community, and that our Chamber and the strength and its success is shown through our business community. You guys support us. The business community supports us. Our 980-plus members. The fact that we can rely on you to fund us to carry out the things that we do in this community is outstanding. So I appreciate that. I think another important thing to understand is the role, the economic development process as it stands right now in this community. In some communities, chambers have an economic development office under its umbrella. Here, it's not the case. We have a professional staff at the county with Wanda, and now we have a professional staff under the city's umbrella with Carl. And they're kind of tasked with targeting separate types of businesses. Wanda does the larger industry, and Carl will do the smaller back-end corporate stuff, the medium to small-size businesses. Where the Chamber plays a role is it really focuses on the current business climate. So the programming, the events, the seminars, the connecting we do through our networking events, and et cetera, really is designed to get our business community engaged, talking to each other, purchasing products from each other, getting to know each other, that sort of thing. So where we fit into the economic development process varies depending on the company or you know what Carl or Wanda are doing. So at some point, you know, we may sit down with a prospect if Carl or Wanda asks us to, and share with them what it would look like if they were to move here in terms of how can you get my employees engaged, how can you get my my family engaged in the community, what is there to do here, the quality of life, that sort of stuff. So we really value that role, and I think it's a testament, especially on the city side, that recently they started that economic development office, because for a while, for those medium to small size businesses, we weren't at the table. And as you all know, if you're not at the table, there's no chance to get that sort of business. So the Chamber's excited about our partnerships and where we stand with the county and with the city and the other efforts in economic development, and we're certainly excited to be a part of that. Just a couple of strengths. I know we were supposed to talk about strengths and weaknesses. You know, a lot of them, the strengths have already been here today. You know, you have Pitt Community College, you have East Carolina, you have Vidant, the healthcare industry, all those folks. Then you have GUC is a huge strength. The excess water capacity and the sewer capacity that is available here is a huge selling point for our area, and I'm sure Wanda can talk more about that. Pitt County Schools is a strength of ours, K-12 education. I know sometimes perceptions, you know, can get in the way of what good things are happening here, but the fact that we have our K-12 school system, the fact that we can show off that school system to prospective businesses and companies is a huge selling point for us. One of the underutilized areas, and I guess that kind of goes into a challenge, I think, is the Tar River area. I know that's a hot topic for debate. You know, sometimes we'll get the complaint of, well, if I move my family here, what is there to do? Well, we have a natural body of water flowing through the Uptown District in our downtown district, and we're not utilizing it enough, in our opinion. So we'd like to see some activity there. I've probably exceeded my 4 minutes, and I know
we'll come back to you.
So
You got a lot of great. There's a lot of
Wanda.
great stuff there, and there's a lot of things. I've been taking notes. You all. We probably need about 6 hours to talk about this alone. But let's go to Wanda Uhas now, who is the Economic Development Officer for Pitt County. Wanda, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I will echo what everyone else has said in terms of thank you for doing this, and thank you for inviting us to be part of it, and thank all of you, some of you have been here all day long. That's stamina. In terms of our strengths and weaknesses, probably our counties as a whole, our greatest strength for a long time has been the diversity of the kinds of jobs we have. The Pitt County Development Commission was created to really focus on industrial development, on manufacturing. You hear people say manufacturing is dead, and then somebody else will say, no, it's coming back. Well, manufacturing's coming back, but it looks different than it did before. But if you look at the diversity of, not just with the hospital and the medical school and the university and our public schools, but we have 100 manufacturers in Pitt County. Some of them have over 1,000 employees, and some of them have 10. But nevertheless, 1,000 different manufacturers. If it's a bad year for lift trucks, it's probably still a good year for pharmaceuticals. So we don't feel the pinch as desperately as other communities might. And if any of you heard Rick Neiswinder's talk a few weeks ago, Pitt County is the only county in the state of North Carolina that has fully recovered any manufacturing jobs lost during the recession, and we have exceeded that amount. So on the manufacturing side, as somebody noted, we are growing. Part of the challenge we are facing is that with the changes in manufacturing and in the changes in what we call primary jobs, jobs that a family can pay the bills with, a project that Carl and I worked on together is Genome ID Group. It's not really manufacturing, it's DNA processing and sequencing. It's watching TV kind of amazing stuff. But it doesn't fall into commercial, retail, or manufacturing. It's its own category, and that means we have to adjust to that. And in that case, there were some things that one of us could bring to the table, other things that somebody else had to do. So it was vitally important that we partner. It also means, and those are very high-paying jobs, it means that demand on our workforce is tremendous, that we are looking for different kinds of people. But as Scott mentioned, Pitt Community College, the university, can produce those kinds of folks for us. Now let me add to that Pitt County Schools. You may be aware Golden Leaf has the new community-initiated grants. County manager had to approve one, and as he went through, the one that looked the best, and actually it started as 3, was a Pitt County Schools, a community college, and a university. And we asked, could you guys partner? And they did, in fact, put together a request that has moved through the first 2 phases of competition that would create an advanced manufacturing academy, a STEM academy that would go K-12, PCC, the university. We are seeing more companies and more consultants look at labor force first. So for us, the better that looks, the more important. We are also seeing different partnerships form. So for instance, in pharmaceuticals, Pitt County partners with Johnston County, Wilson County, and Nash County, and Eastern Wake County. When you pull that together, there are over, or almost 8,000 employees directly employed in pharmaceutical production. That gives us a real edge when a consultant is looking at a pharmaceutical project. We have the workforce, we have the training mechanism. Our weakness is also an advantage. We are constantly in transition. We are very much like an adolescent child. We are growing and changing. We're turning into something different. And most days, that's great. And some days you want to just say, go to your room. And perhaps the biggest thing is that all of us we've always partnered together, but we're learning to partner together even more closely than we ever had before.
Thank you all for those comments. You know, it strikes me that, you know, I came here in the 70s, and I saw what Greenville looked like in 1970. I think there were 31,000 people in Greenville when I came here. Tom, you grew up here. A lot of other folks in this room may have grown up here, and you've seen the metamorphosis that this community has taken. You know, as I think about it, over the years, there was a period of time there, Wanda, when industrial was the thing. You know, we had a university with about 10, 15,000 students, and that drove the economy somewhat, but we had Procter & Gamble, which was a lot of people don't realize we had a huge Procter & Gamble plant here, and they employed so many people. And we had Burroughs Wellcome, that was kind of an offshoot of the RTP, Burroughs Wellcome. They employed a lot of people, but over time, we've lost that. But what we've replaced it though. We've found a way to replace it. Tom is developing all these business properties where construction jobs are available. You mentioned the DNA group that came to Greenville. I mean, who would have ever thought that Greenville, North Carolina would be the home of one of the top DNA organizations in the country. We could have CSI Greenville next, you know. but the economy is not any one thing here, is it? Except for healthcare and the university. We've got. I found it interesting. You said we had 100 manufacturers here, but they're all small, right? We don't have the Procter and Gamble anymore.
Well, you've got DSM, which is going to be Patheon, and in case you're wondering, Carson Sublett is going to continue as the site manager there, and we are thrilled about that. That will give us back the borough's welcome profile, actually. Patheon has its headquarters in RTP. We have about 1,000 people employed in pharmaceutical manufacturing at DSM, or Patheon. NACO is the America's headquarters, so that's everything from Canada through South America for lift trucks. So that's another 1,000, 1,100 employees. Those are our two biggest. Mm-hmm. Then you drop down to the Roberts Company with 800, to Grady White Boat with 300. And then, as I said, some that only have 10 employees.
When you're talking about Greenville's economy, there's a lot of good news, but there's not. We want to grow. We want to have quality of life. We want all the good things. Carl Reese, when you're talking to someone, a company about located in Greenville, what do they want to hear out of your mouth?
A lot of different things. Probably the number one thing for any company that we deal with is the where, either the building or the piece of land. Can they make that end of it? And the number two is the who. Do we have the people ready to work for them? Juan and I talk about it a lot. The state of North Carolina, particularly through the community college system, has been quite wonderful in developing our workforce system, and we've got other partners who work on that as well. But companies today typically want to go somewhere where they don't have to spend a lot of time to get that workforce up to speed. They want to know if they need 150 employees that can do whatever that thing is. They want to know that there's a pool of 500 that they can choose from where they can be sure to get quality employees. And then I typically, if you were to ask those folks, this quality of life issue that Tom Taft brought up, if you see site selector surveys or business surveys, it's typically not in the top 5. However, we find in Greenville that it's extremely important. I'll use an example. A good friend of ours is with the Brody School of Medicine. They're in a recruitment now for a department chair. And quite candidly, they're having a bit of a hard time because as they bring these people in from metro areas across the United States, in some areas, candidly, we don't quite stack up against some of these places. And it's difficult. And so I can't overstate the importance that we continue to work on our community as a great place to live. The quality of life absolutely includes the education, the safety, the parks, getting around, the cost of living, all those sorts of things, all very, very important. And so even if you don't see that as a top 2, 3, 4 in sort of a site selection situation, it is critical at the end of the day that we continue to work on that.
Let me ask Tom Taft this question. Tom, your son Thomas is sitting over here. My son Hank is here. You and I are Eastern North Carolina business people. We had something for our sons to come back to. And I met it's funny, I was just thinking about this. I met a young man this week. I was sitting in a restaurant. My wife was out of town. I was eating alone. This young man sat next to me at the bar at Atavola, and I started talking to him, and he was talking about how he'd moved here from Pennsylvania. And I asked him, why did you come here? He ended up coming down here to work for PNC. But, we're growing in population. Other Eastern North Carolina towns are losing population, so we have a lot going for us. But do we have enough going for us? Or is there enough to continue to bring the children of business people and the other people that live here back to Greenville? Eastern North Carolina suffers from not having enough to bring these kids back.
I think we do a reasonably good job in Greenville. That's not to say we couldn't do much, much better. And when I go to somewhere like Greenville, South Carolina, and you see what they've done there, I've recently looked at an apartment project, investing in an apartment project in Knoxville, Tennessee. Knoxville's not a huge city. And the city of Knoxville was going to gave a $2.5 million tax increment finance contribution to a relatively small apartment project because they wanted apartments built on the river that goes through Knoxville on the opposite side of the river from where most of the town was, to stimulate development over there. If you came to Greenville right now and had an opportunity to make something like that happen, it would be very difficult to sell, even though we've broken ground and the city and the county responded very well on our tax increment financing for the student housing project. But it was a relatively small sum. We have to find ways to educate our business leaders to ask for those kinds of things and to educate our political leaders to be willing to consider those kinds of things if we want to be at the top of the class. And that's what we ought to do, is have a goal.
You brought that up twice. It sounds like you have a mission there. I mean, I see city council people here, may have some other elected officials here. What do we need to do? Do we need to learn more about what these communities? We did a great intercity trip. Scott's chamber group took a intercity trip to Greenville, South Carolina. Since that, there's been a lot of talk about river development because of what Greenville, South Carolina's done with their river. Do we need to, is the message from you, we need to get out of the box here a little bit?
We absolutely do.
Yeah.
And we need to be smart, and we need not to be bound by old ideas. That doesn't mean we want to be foolish, but to make money, you have to spend money. You have to invest. And you have to invest not only in education and infrastructure, but you have to invest in the things that make your communities really attractive to people. And I think that's what can set us apart from the rest of Eastern North Carolina and other competitive communities. And I hope we'll be able to develop that vision.
We have not landed the home run in Eastern North Carolina that we've tried to land. I see my friend John Chafee back there with the Global Transpark region. It's called the Eastern region now. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw a negative at you. But let's face it. We've taken a shot in Eastern North Carolina at FedEx, Boeing, BMW. We've not landed any of that. We're not going to land any of that, are we, Scott? I mean, maybe Scott and Wanda both. Scott, take this one. Our friend Alan Smith is the president who was in the Greenville Chambers, now the president of the chamber in Greer, South Carolina, who did get the BMW plant, and it's essentially transformed that whole area of South Carolina. But we're why are we not able to land the Grand Slam home run that we keep taking the shot for here?
I'll add some, and then I'll pass over to Wanda, as that's kind of more in her wheelhouse as she handles those types of recruitments. But I think Tom hit the nail on the head, and Wanda did too. The economic development landscape and the process that it takes to do what Greer did with BMW, that's all changed. And I think Greenville and Pitt County, is going through some growing pains. And when you go through growing pains, you're almost spinning your wheels trying to figure out which direction to go. And there's a lot of insight, a lot of good ideas, and a lot of good leaders that want to take it certain directions. So I think the next step for us is, no one's going to come to us tomorrow and walk into here and say, we're going to plop a 15,000 square foot facility with 700 jobs. We have to have the effort and the collaboration and the vision, as Tom said, and craft a plan and a process around the assets that we have. There's no need to compete, in a sense, with RTP and Charlotte. They have different assets, different strengths. Eastern North Carolina has its own set of assets and strengths. It's up to us as leaders of this community to figure out the process and figure out the marketing mechanisms and get the people in the right places to go out and get those companies. It's not a one-size-fits-all process. We have to sit down. It's hard work. You have to figure out, there's a lot of good things that we have, but you can't market all of them. You can't be all things to all people, right? So I think you're seeing that now. And I'm speaking from the past 1 or 2 years, we've been in meetings and sat at the table with, all of us have been at a table and took a hard look at what we're doing and our process. So I think you're going to see changes in that. And I'm going to let Wanda go, but I want to add something a little bit later before we close.
One quick comment about leveraging our assets in Greenville. A good example of an asset that we have tied up and very difficult seeming to exploit is our river frontage along the Tar River. And I appreciate and respect the concept and belief that people want to keep that pretty much like it is. But it is such an opportunity and such an asset. It is really a jewel in the rough if we can find a way to accommodate the public need that's there now, as well as the development opportunity that would be there for Greenville. We've got to find ways to be able to do that.
You know, you look at the Tar River and you look at that and go, wow, it's just a big muddy ditch. But, I mean, other communities have done it.
That's correct.
Greenville, South Carolina's done it. There have been other communities that have been able to take that asset and turn it into something that you can't imagine right now. Wanda Uhas, back to the question about recruiting the big win and what it takes and whether or not we're capable of doing that at this point.
Picking up on what Scott said, economic development has changed a great deal since the days of the BMW project. That was one of the first big incentive-based projects. I can remember sitting in our office and going, man, can they give them that much money and make that pay off? How will that work? Well, yes, they could give them that much money, and it did pay off. I would say the one thing about that, though, that we can replicate is that they were very bold. Picking up on Tom's comment, they were progressive. They stepped outside of the box. They took a very bold position. Now, whether our bold position is the same as that, that's for us to determine, because we're not anyplace else. We're where we are. We've got to look at our place. But being bold and being progressive, I think, are the two things that we can all agree on.
All right, let's go to the audience microphone. Sir, give us your name and your comment.
Yeah, I'm Dave Barham. The PhDs, the MDs, the Professional Association in Greenville are doing fine, and that's great. I'm glad. For the last 10 years, exclusively, I've worked in complexes around this town almost every day, from the best to the worst. More and more, I'm seeing 18 to 30-year-old people wandering around at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I interact with these people. I've been there 10 years. I know a lot of them. And let me give you an example. It was a lead man for Cheddar's. When he showed back up the second time at the city council meeting, I asked him, what are you doing here? He said, I had to come back about my sign over the canopy. He said, I've never had to come back a second time for some regulation about a sign. Now, what I'm getting at is crime affects every socio part of town. The police go through a lot of these complexes. Now, all right, let me tell you. Calvin and Marion voted not to have the new Walmart to be built. I ran against Rick Smiley. He's obsessed with tree coverage over neighborhoods, which is okay. I mean, that's okay. The new doc on the city council just campaigned on living wage.
Your point is regulation. Your
well,
point is too much regulation.
And I think we're leaving the low strata, the GEDs and the high school people out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they work at Walmarts. I think we need more Walmart type jobs.
So you're saying there needs to be more emphasis on creating jobs for people that aren't in the higher.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I worked with them 10 years.
Okay.
These people
Right.
aren't going to work at the green jobs. They're not
Gotcha.
chemists.
Right.
Thank you.
Carl, you want to address that? Carl Reese.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point, and it actually goes back to some conversation we had earlier. I know Wanda was talking about it, about how the world has changed around us in the last couple decades. It used to be very much that you could go finish high school and go and find a job that would, over time, you might not start out at a lot, but you could work there, stay with that company, and make a living wage to support your family. That is less so. First of all, there's far fewer of those jobs. We have become highly mechanized and computerized in what we do, and computers and machines do much of the work that many of us used to do with our hands. And whether we like it or not, that looks like the trend for the future as we continue on. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the jobs that are there now, in many cases, require technical skills. They don't necessarily require you to have a PhD or an MD or even an engineering degree, but they require technical skills typically that go beyond what we see in our high schools. And I know you had an educational summit for them.
We're very fortunate because of that to have Pitt Community College here doing that. Yeah.
Exactly. But so there's that transition there that has to take place. Having said that, I would say our office, and I think Wanda's office, recognizes that for every DNA lab that we're fortunate to get that will hire PhDs, we need to work just as hard at those industries, those businesses that will hire people that don't necessarily have PhDs.
And Dave, if there's any consolation, there are 2 more Walmarts coming. So let's go.
You might find it reassuring too, and I think for anybody in economic development, that widening gap, not just here but anywhere, between very high-end jobs and no jobs, that's what keeps you awake at night, is how you're going to do that.
Right.
We are looking at things like food processing, and I don't mean chicken processing, but other kinds of jobs.
You want to clarify that for the folks
That's right.
in Edgecombe County? Okay.
We
All right,
respond to
let's
every
go.
company.
Mr. Wilson has a question. State your
Willie
name again.
Wilson again. My question is sort of compounded, but first I want to make a comment to Senator Taft. You're a previous senator, I guess, before I came back down here. You don't sound like you from North Carolina. Sorry.
I sound like I'm from Texas
No,
or Georgia.
I don't mean vocally. I mean your ideas and your thoughts are very progressive and very thoughtful, extremely thoughtful. And to Carl, I want to appreciate your assessment of the assessed tax values, whether they are realistic for where we want to go and where we should go. I sort of have the same mindset as you do. Now, in terms of the comments about the per capita income in this area being the lower than the state average or the national average, and the idea that our teachers that teach our kids who we rely on for the future is below average also in their per capita income. When we look at trying to bring businesses into North Carolina or into Greenville, let's say, is that a factor that they look at to say, I can go in and get cheap labor with very low health care? Or do you say, I want to bring in businesses that are quality business that's going to pay quality wages? Anyone can answer that question.
Okay. First, any company that would approach us, regardless of what wage they pay or what they do, we would provide information. You know, we're not in the business of saying, we like you, but we don't like you. At the same time, we are very honest with any company that we are working with about what they are likely to find here. So they are going to be looking for an educated workforce. I mean, there are a number of things that a company will look for. They may not care so much what our teachers get paid, but they care about what students are able to do. Now, whether or not they will factor in that kind of wage, I don't know. It depends on the particular company. The other piece of that in terms of, yes, we do look for companies that are going to pay higher wages. At the same time, we are looking for those companies that are going to pay that basic wage. But if they're going to pay 75% of the entire family's health insurance, that's the trade-off worth our making. So there are a number of different things we look for, and there are some target industry sectors that we have: food processing, pharmaceuticals, automotive support.
All right, Carl's got a quick, very quick if you can, because we're at 7 minutes in this. We've got another person at the microphone here.
Sure. And to your question, sir, we've been working with a company for a while now that's had a strong presence in the Research Triangle Park area for many, many years. They're actually looking to move portions of their company to this area because there are some competitive advantages in the cost of labor. But guess what? If that company comes here, they're going to create potentially up to 100 jobs at a really good wage level for citizens here that's actually over and above what many people make here. So it's an advantage to them getting out of expensive RTP, an advantage to us getting them in town.
All right, back to the audience mic. We have a former city councilman here. State your name, sir.
I'm Dennis Mitchell. And my question kind of goes along the lines of where we at with economic development. With Greenville getting in the game, it pretty much got us excited about it, but it's really, we're just at the baseline. I think when our consultant came down here with Senator Taft talking about the incentives, we have a very basic incentive package, and we knew that from the beginning, and it's something we had to look at. Even though it was great that Greenville got in the game and the county changed theirs to help that project go downtown, it's very basic. But what I want to talk about and what you guys talk about is there were three very good economic development assessments done that covered, a different range of ideas. There were some low-hanging things that we kept on talking about that everyone we thought agreed with. Creating a shell building, possibly looking at some of the rebranding of certain office parks and things like that. Where are we at with those three different plans as we move
Can
forward?
we do that? Plans are underway now for an industrial shell building. In fact, when I leave here, I'm going to a shell building committee meeting. We are looking at something that would work for either high tech or life sciences. If we build to that standard, then any company could go into it. We have an industrial building fund. We will use a component of our fund balance, so you'll all be pleased to know we're not going to come looking for money from you. So that is underway and will happen. We are trying to move that fast because we know there are projects out there that will want to look for buildings that are very desirable projects to us right now. In terms of park names, one of the things that we are looking at, with the changes at the regional level, we have had some money returned to the county. We are trying to determine how to expend that money so it's not one and gone. We are looking at possibility of putting in signage in all of the industrial parks, offering to each of them at that time, the possibility if they want to rename their park. I could see that more likely happening with something like Green, which was named by a committee of 100, than I do Minji's Corporate Park, which belongs to the Minji's family. But that would be an easy time to make that offer.
Let me kind of switch gears. We've got 4 minutes left, and there were a couple things I wanted to ask. I want to ask Tom Taft as a business person, as a person who invests in the community. Is Greenville an easy place to do business in?
Greenville is an easy place to do business in as it relates to city government and county government. We have had a delightful experience with the city thus far in all of the planning and zoning related issues, code enforcement, inspections. I don't mean they just roll over and let you do things you shouldn't do, but they're willing to listen to you if it makes sense and they understand the urgency of it. They're there to help you. And I commend them for that. I'd have to say Greenville is extremely business friendly, development friendly. Our experience in Raleigh is unbelievably different. It's another world.
Yeah.
And so Greenville should be proud of the way we operate.
That's good to hear. Oh, Scott hadn't had much airtime. I got a question for you, Scott. What does Greenville not have that we need?
We only have 4 minutes.
And you have 15 seconds left, and the clock is ticking.
Believe it or not, we actually have a lot of the pieces in place. I think the biggest challenge, and this is my honest opinion, is that it's putting them together. We're really lucky to be here and to have this business climate and these economic engines that we've had for years, and the diversity in our manufacturing group, and the leaders at this table, and the leaders in the panels that we've had prior. It just takes bold leadership. It takes some risks, as we've talked about. It takes some planning to get all of us together. And then it's one thing to get us together, but to dig deeper and make sure that our plans complement each other. So that's the good news is, we have all the big things that we need. It's just some planning to get us to the next step.
I'm just happy that you didn't answer that question by saying another Walmart. Because it sounds like we're going to have plenty of those. We're out of time, essentially. This has been great. The problem with all of these today has been there just hadn't been enough time to do any of this in an hour. But as we've said from the beginning, we want these to be a beginning of discussions. There have been some good ideas here today, I think. I think Tom's thrown out some ideas that would be thought starters for the city council to start thinking about. Councilwoman Smith, I see you here. The mayor just walked in. We've got some good folks doing some good things. We've had some victories. We didn't get to talk about ASMO, but Wanda, one of your big victories last year was the expansion at ASMO and the number of jobs that were added there. Sorry? Entrepreneurship. And we didn't get to talk about what I always want to talk about in terms of an overall strategy for Eastern North Carolina, which there just doesn't seem to be a comprehensive plan in place anywhere to try to rebuild the economy of Eastern North Carolina. But we certainly don't have time to start that now. So let me thank Tom Taft. And Tom, thank you for the great job that you do in the community, the quality product. You know, we got some great folks here doing some good things. You, Hyman Brody, Jim Ward, I don't want to start naming names, I shouldn't, but there's a lot of really good development. I know, now I'm in trouble. If I didn't call your name, I meant to. But you got to agree with me. I mean, the project you're doing downtown is unbelievable. The project at the end of Arlington Boulevard is terrific. And, you know, we should be happy we've got folks like you that are building quality things like that in the community and really helping to drive the economy forward. Carl Reese, thank you for what you do. Scott Senator, you're doing a great job as chamber president. Wanda Uhas, thank you for all you do as economic developer for the county.